All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another episode of the Fighting Pit podcast, episode 33. Joined with my co-host Mullahoo here. WizardBeast out this week, doing a little birthday celebrating. So happy early birthday to him. Hope he's having a good time. He should be back with us next week or so. But we're gonna have some fun this one. This is our first episode back after the new Mercs drop. So we took last week off. Everyone was busy grinding. Wasn't quite as much to talk about, because it takes some time to get some impressions for the new Mercenaries. But I finished grinding up all the characters the other day. So we're gonna do some cool stuff this episode. We're gonna be testing some stuff out. There's gonna be gameplay in this one, and that should be a lot of fun. I know Mullahoo, you've been kind of hands off with it, so we'll get to see some of your first impressions of how some of these characters actually play out compared to. It's always like, and this is the case with like regular Hearthstone, it's always different when you actually get to play with the cards versus just theorizing and reading what they do and all that kind of stuff. So that's really exciting. We're going to get right on into the episode though, but before we do, if you enjoy this type of content, do remember to like, subscribe, comment, all that good social media stuff. Helps us out a ton and really supports the show. So yeah, let's get into it. This drop has really been something else so far. Obviously, it's early in the time frame. I mean, it hasn't even been. It's been just over a week, right? Yeah, it's been just over a week since we got the drop, and a lot has changed as a result of this drop, even though a lot of people don't have the characters leveled up yet. It's I think this is going to be the biggest change and potentially the most diverse meta we have seen in the history of the game. And it's kind of a bold claim, but I think that's what's going to happen here with some of these new characters.
No, I agree. I think we were kind of talking about it in terms of like a draft perspective a little bit before this, but this is really the first time where I would say basically every color, every spell school has a deck that you can play now. And there's cool stuff that's been iterated like multiple times deep in other spell schools. And we have so many of these cool color changing mercs now for the first time. I mean, this really does feel like we solved multiple 90%, 80%, 70% kind of situations, brought them all up to 100. I envision a meta that might never be solved at this point. Like, people are going to have to grind it up and then start figuring things out. And now there's too much to ever solve before the next stuff comes out. I mean, this might be that dream scenario where there's 1,000 Pokemon, you'll never see the same thing again. But we're getting closer.
Yeah, we're getting a lot closer to that. And this is kind of one of the reasons I've been so bullish on the mode since the beginning, because you've played a bunch of Pokemon, I like to use the analogy of like Generation 1 in Pokemon. Generation 1 was not a very varied meta, and that wasn't just because Generation 1 had a bunch of weird mechanics. It was because Generation 1, there were only so many Pokemon. Yeah, there are 150 of them, but like half of that are pre-evolutions, so you're not using them in a competitive sense, so that already cutting you down to 75. And then a bunch of them don't have good moves or don't have good stats, and that cuts it down in half again. And it's kind of like what we had at launch with Mercenaries, at least in PvP, where though we launched with, I believe it was like 52, 54 Mercenaries, something like that, not very many of them saw PvP play. It was like, I don't know, maybe like 15 or 20. There were a lot that just weren't really made or up to the power level of even launch PvP characters. And that was one of those things where, like, and I was talking about this the other day on stream, where like Karen Diablo is the initial kind of meta terror with the bench, where it was like the end all be all, and there wasn't really much you could do about it. You just played it yourself. Everyone just kind of was running it, but that changed. That was how it was at launch, but we got our first drop not very long after launch. If we think about it, I think it was like the end of October, so it was really only like 2-ish weeks, I want to say. I have to look it up to confirm, but I'm pretty sure the first drop with the Pirates and Cookie, because that came with the mini set. Let me see if I can check that here. Mini set Hearthstone.
Yeah, Cookie had just, because the Invitational had just had Cookie, and that was in November 16th. So that was a month
Yeah,
after,
the
basically.
Dead Mines mini set, November 2nd. So it was literally, it was it was like a few days later than I thought. But uh, worth noting that season 1 of Mercenaries was actually longer
Yeah,
than our traditional seasons now, because Mercenaries dropped on the 12th. So it started kind of mid-month. So season 1 was actually the second half of October and then all of November. And we saw in that first drop, even though some of the characters, like a lot of the pirates for the most part, were pretty underpowered at the time, barring maybe Eudora, who did see a bit more play, because this was before things like Edwin and Vanessa got buffed. But Cookie was a real big game changer, because not only did Cookie back then combo with Karen and Diablo and made for like an even stronger version of that bench, eventually people figured out, well, if you throw Cookie, Brucon, and Malfurion on the bench, you can actually beat Karen Diablo. And that was kind of one of the first main evolutions we saw in terms of like bench play. And the drops were kind of very different back then, right? Where you're getting these monthly drops of a handful of characters, but a lot of the time what was happening with the drops is there was usually one really star standout character, and then maybe one other one that was like good. Sometimes there was more, but like a lot of them, that's what it felt like. I think of
We're
the
really getting chunks of 5 basically
yeah,
at a time. So it's like a playable, like one good one, two okay ones, two bad ones. Like was
yeah, there were
the
a lot of
genre
bad
of
ones.
yeah.
And some of those have been improved and buffed along the way, which is great. I really do enjoy the approach they've taken with buffing characters and how it's been honestly, all things considered, barring like I think obviously the Trigor one was a bit problematic for a while. Um, I think all the other buffs have been really, really good for the game. And even Trigor, now that we have more tools to deal with him, even though he can still be annoying, he's not nearly as annoying as he was in the meta that his initial buff formed, when there just wasn't a lot of good answers, when he was also dealing retaliation damage when you killed him with like AoE. Like that alone was a very big change. So it's been very interesting to see it evolve over time. And to get back to the original point, with Pokemon, the meta changed so much from just Gen 1 to Gen 2. And then it kept compounding and getting more complex, and there ended up being more variety as it expanded, because there were all these new combinations you could try. And I think a big part of why we're seeing more of that now is there's a lot more depth to these new mercenary designs. They're just like way, way deeper, and there's more to them. And I really love all the design space being explored, because it feels like night and day. Like even the launch mercenaries that were good, like they didn't have this level of like depth to them, where there's so many different decision make things you can do. There's so many more combos that you can do, and it's not all dependent on spell schools. Like there is spell school synergy and stuff like that, but there are also just combos that these abilities just happen to work together. Like a big one we've seen is the Rng Bounce with things like Nemzi's Battle Cry or other battle cries. And I love that we're actually seeing mercenaries that have a battle cry or a death rattle built into them, rather than requiring the item slot to get that effect.
Yeah, no, I think a good way to maybe describe even like this new shift of design complexity that we're seeing is really when you think of the early stages of combat and mercenaries PvP in particular, you would have a matchup, and the matchup would basically have one good flow chart that it would kind of go down for the most part, where one player, because they had the kind of winning side of the fight, would be able to steer it in that direction. It was kind of up to the other player to like maybe get something cheeky, but there was kind of one direction the game would go. But
Mm-hmm.
now with things like Wansamdi and all these like color changing that's going all over the place, it feels a little bit more as if now we just have the option to, at different points in the game, suddenly fork in a very different way. And in some cases, a completely new way every time. Again, with Bonsomdi just resetting what your board gets to look like, you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of do any number of variations with that. But I think that's one of the things that strikes me about this is like these mercenaries are allowing for a kind of mid-game switch up.
Yes.
Whereas before we weren't seeing, you just knew it was Karen Diablo. Like you knew the order that they were coming out because there was kind of only one way for it to go. And now it feels like we're getting these forks, but one fork just multiplies nearly exponentially the number of things that can happen. Forget about when we're getting now multiple forks or kind of multiple decision pathways. The complexity certainly just ballooned overnight, I think, with this patch.
Yeah, and personally, I think it's a really great thing for the game because that was one thing I was a little worried about initially compared to stuff like Pokemon is uh, Mercenaries is a lot simpler and more straightforward in its design where you have 3 items, you pick one, you have 3 skills, you're using one of them per turn. And obviously there can be more depth to that, but Pokemon, you have a lot of stuff like, well, you have 4 moves. On top of that, you get to decide like stat spreads for your Pokemon so you can build them in different ways to make them faster, to make them more tanky, to
It
make
does feel like
them...
it's coming. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it very well could, for sure. But just seeing the new designs has definitely given me a very optimistic outlook towards the future. Because, I mean, if this is like the new standard, we talked a bunch about, right, like comparing 2021 design mercs to like 2022 ones. And it feels like we're already like jumping into the future again. It feels like comparing like these new drop ones to even just like a drop or two ago, it feels like a whole world of difference. I think one of the best ways to put it is we got less mercenaries this time. We got 14 instead of, I think last time with the event it was 17 or 18. But it feels like we got more because more of these characters are playable. And there were a lot of cool characters last time, but like I think the Nagas were a great example of they printed a lot of these. I mean, it was thematic and stuff, and eventually, you know, a good Naga comp was found, but like half of the Nagas still don't really see play. Like the Jara doesn't see much play. Slither Spear, not really, though maybe he could make a comeback with the summons running around. And Fathom Lord Karathras. Those Nagas just don't see too much play. We did end up seeing the other ones see play, and obviously the Queen saw a lot of play. But that's a lot of characters. That right there, that's 3 characters out of your drop that didn't really find a home in PvP and not really in PvE very much that I've seen. So I really think when you're gonna have release cycles like this, where it's once every 4 months or whatever it is, making sure that like as many of these characters are like playable and interesting as possible is like very important. Because if we get 14 new characters and like 3 or 4 of them aren't that good or aren't very usable, that really limits the total options you can have in experimentation. And I feel like we don't have that problem at all right now. Like this drop it's created new archetypes, it's made old archetypes kind of evolve, it's given support to things that were kind of sorely lacking it, like Fell, for example. I think there is something there. I've seen a few different experimentations that look kind of promising. The one tribe, I guess actually 2 tribes that got a little left out this time around were Holy and Beasts. A little surprised didn't see any Holy support, a little bit less so with Beasts, but you know, there are a lot of Holy characters, there are a lot of Beast characters. I'm sure we're going to see something like that in the future. One other thing that really surprised me, though, was we didn't see really any tie-in to Nathria so far, which definitely took me by surprise. You know, we talked about this before in a previous episode. We got all the Old God events, so we were kind of expecting, well, yeah, we're going to get a Yogg fight and a Cthulhu fight because we got the other 2 boss fights, and I really liked the theme of the Dark Moon Fair. These are actually some of my favorite PvE content things in a while. Thought they were actually pretty good, and I had a lot of fun doing them. But I was surprised that we didn't get much of a tie-in like we got for Sunken City, where it felt like the whole drop wasn't about Sunken City, but you know, we got to explore an area that was themed around it. We got a lot of the Nagas, and the only character we got from Nathria was Murloc Holmes, who really cool. I'm glad we got him. Finally, another red Murloc, right? But I was surprised we didn't see any other of the iconic characters to tie in the recent set and kind of the mini set, like Denathrius, like Prince Renathal. Those are two that I really kind of expected to see, and I wouldn't be surprised if we potentially see them as an event. But they did not show up in the initial patch, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of reasonable to suspect that they might just be, because we're expecting an event soon-ish, right? And so I think Denathrius in particular would be a really funky one to be able to have as a merc. But I mean, this is the end. This is like the beginning of chapter 2 of these events, or I guess it's not even chapter 2. It's more like this kind of weird chapter 3 of the events, where it's kind of like a bunch of disparate characters and then all the old gods, and now it's the beginning of we don't know what. And so it's almost impossible to guess right now, because it's not going to be
anything.
Fair. It could be, but it could be Denathrius. It could be the start of wherever they want the mercenaries thing to go. It could be probably tying into right where what this PvE end game is going to look like. It seems pretty straightforward. Like, to be able to connect the PvE end game to events in some kind of way seems like a really easy way to tie stuff into to kind of set your own storyline that way. So it could be something like that. But this is we're opening a door for the first time. We have nothing to connect to yet.
Yeah, and I mean, we had the old gods kind of come all at once, so we kind of knew what to expect, and now we don't. It's kind of like the first or second event where we got like Chi-Ji and Leroy. Like, nobody was expecting those mercenaries. Like I know myself and a few others talked about like the idea of getting to mess around with, like, it'd be so cool if we got Leroy as a mercenary, but I don't think anyone really expected it anytime soon.
No.
And I love Leroy. We haven't seen quite as much of him recently, but he
disappeared as soon as the event was over, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he was relevant in the PvP meta for a while, but I do think once the old gods builds got more popular and whatnot, it made it a bit harder for him, because he didn't really have a great way of dealing with Cthulhu. Like, part of the reason he saw a bunch of play was because he could 0 speed, deal a ton of damage as like a bench carry, and we saw comps kind of moved away from having as caster heavy benches somewhat, other than Shadow. So I think meta just kind of shifted on him a bit. Like, big humans were really good initially when we got the last big drop, and then I think they were still good, but they got a bit worse once we got all the old gods. And that's another comp so the cool thing about this drop is it feels like no comp from the last drop is like, they're still good. They're still very powerful comps, but it feels like we have a lot more options for dealing with them. And we were talking a little bit about this before. Medivh with his counter is just like, it's such a crazy ability against some of the stuff we've seen for a while now, like Trigor Valera stuff, where, well, you have Trigor and Valera to deal a crazy amount of damage on turn 1. Trigor combos Valera, so you get the speed too on top of it. And it's just an absurd amount of damage output. And now we have a way where you can pretty easily, you counter Trigor's ability on 1, so he literally does nothing. And unless they have another 3 or less speed, that's actually countering the Valera combo, so you're not even getting a Valera speed boost on 1, which is very, very relevant, because then you're not always outsped on turn 2. Just that equipment alone, I think, is going to shake up a lot of stuff. And it's not just good against that, it's good against stuff like the old gods, because it counters Yasharaj's refresh ability on turn 1. So they can't as easily get their old gods to be ulting on turn 2. So just that equipment alone really provides a lot of interesting counterplay to most of the dominant comps in last meta. I mean, like, kind of the big 3 were really the Shadow, the old gods, and the arcane Valera. And all those 3, it feels like there are now more ways of helping to deal with those comps. Even though they're still strong, doesn't feel like they're in kind of a league of their own anymore.
Yeah, no, I think the fact that we didn't get a drop, and then kind of like what happened to Frost a little bit once, and to Shadow even kind of as well, where we were just like, okay, new stuff. Now the best deck is still broken, and it's still really good, and there's no reason to really play anything else yet. Like we don't get that vibe at all. And like you said, I think the Medivh equipment is probably going to be a big part of that. And I feel obligated to mention, because I did not know this, and I was stunned to hear this, that the Medivh equipment, that little counterspell stone, actually has a 0 speed attack as a part. It can counter itself.
Yep.
I never expected it to have that additional layer of just all upside on its text. Like I didn't even expect it to be able to attack at all. And when you first told me that, I was like, oh, that's cool. You have the choice to like counter it slowly. Like I'm sure it's a 5 or like a normal speed, but 0. And as long as this is as intended, that is just a yet another cool level of just, I mean, it's not a legendary Medivh. I mean, it's a powerful thing, but that equipment alone gets me really excited. And with all this Bonsomdi picking stuff up, I mean, it definitely seems like every deck can be attacked now, basically. And we kind of have enough hate cards to a certain extent.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like we're finally getting some interesting kind of counters. One other thing that's kind of cool to mention is that, and this isn't we haven't seen this effect yet, but there was a little kind of sneaky thing that someone in the Discord noticed that kind of hints that it's probably something we're going to see at some point. So the new troll character, the one with the death rattle, let me find him here. Yeah, Korak. So someone was hovering over him in game, and when they were hovering over him in game, they noticed, you know how you get the little tooltip effect for like what some things do, like keywords and whatnot? Well, hovering over him, they noticed there was a silence. So it said like silence, and it just, I believe it was just like disable the ongoing effects of like this character.
That word was there somewhere.
So the fact that, I mean, we've been asking for that for a while, like some kind of silence effect, and now that we're seeing mercs that are having a default death rattle, a default battle cry, silence kind of makes a lot more sense. I mean, we're seeing more mercs also like Khadgar that have that like transformation passively that get a bonus. So being able to actually turn off that effect somehow, it's kind of just a natural thing to add to the game as we get more of characters with these kinds of effects. You want a way to deal with them that's not just always just flat out killing them. So I'm pretty excited to see how that's going to get implemented. I doubt it's something we're going to see, you know, I mean, we could see it in one of the future events, but I feel like that's probably something that's going to be saved for the next big drop. We'll see something like that implemented, but very, very interesting, to say the least. You know, we've talked about something, and a lot of the stuff we have kind of talked about and theorized on the show, like we have seen over time. One of the ones worth noting is Trick Room. I mean, you've been here for some of the past episodes. You know how much and how long I've been asking for a Trick Room effect to make its way into Mercenaries, and now we have that kind of like,
or do we?
Pretty close. Yeah, I was going to touch on that. So Bonsomdi has an ability like that where he kind of swaps with the speeds. However, unfortunately, there is a bug right now where his deal of time that messes with the speeds, it's doing them off of base cost instead of if the speed is reduced by, let's say, Vol'jin's passive or Valera or Edwin. So that definitely seems like a bug. And hopefully that's something that can be fixed in the near future, because that's one of the things I really wanted to mess around with him, like kind of helping out slower strategies and whatnot. And it can still do that, but it doesn't really punish fast strategies as good as it should. So hopefully that can get fixed. I will say, though, overall, especially compared to the last drop, there have not been nearly as many character impacting bugs. There are still bugs, but I've yet to come into one where it's not like Bran or even Bane at launch, where the characters' abilities were just kind of so broken in a bunch of ways where you just couldn't even remotely consider them as an option until they got fixed or reworked or whatever. That really hasn't happened with this one. So I mean, I've been very kind of impressively surprised with there were bugs, right? Like there were one of the rares didn't show up in the packs for a little bit. There are some, like, and there's actually, and I'll probably include this link in the description. There's a great if you want to report bugs for the mode, the best way to do that is the Blizzard forums, and someone in the Discord actually put together, they did some really extensive bug testing, which is great because I would like to do stuff like that. I just don't have the time to do it. And they did some really, really extensive bug testing, and I actually tweeted out about it, and they followed up on it today, and looks like there were a lot of eyes on it, and hopefully that information will help fix some of these bugs, just make the developers aware that some of these things aren't working as intended. And it's extensive. Like I'll link it so you can take a look here in chat, but it's like, it is very extensive. They found things that I would not have even remotely noticed. And it's pretty long, but it's very good information, and it's just very helpful in kind of fixing what are otherwise very fringe interactions. I know one of the ones I've noticed was, so Medivh, his ability makes your next arcane ability deal critical damage, but the Tyrandra's shot, only her first shot deals damage, so it shoots those two projectiles, but only the first one of those two is critting. Yeah, like the left one is critting, and it's like, it's weird, and it probably shouldn't be working that way, but there are a few, and like Zampage mentions here, I guess there was a bug for some people where there was a new reward, and this is actually a topic I'd like to talk about. There was a new reward, and in the story task chains, right? And this is something we've actually been asking for a while, is something a bit more rewarding for the story tasks, and they did something pretty cool. I don't know if you saw this, Mullahoo, but there are 2 story tasks where the reward listed is a legendary mercenary. And there was a little bit of confusion about this, kind of rightfully so, because it worked differently than how we have known a random legendary merc to work in the past in, say, the shop bundle deals, right? So it showed the same thing like you see in the shop, random legendary mercenary. However, a lot of people, myself included, kind of assumed, well, if you're missing a legendary merc, it'll probably give you one of the ones you're missing, and then if you have them all, you get a skin instead, because that's typically how it works. However, this new quest task chain thing doesn't seem to work that way, and this definitely caused a lot of confusion initially. And even now, like I did like 2 different videos covering it because it was by far the most asked about question on release. And basically what happens is, so instead of giving you a legendary you don't have guaranteed, it rolls a random legendary out of all the ones in the pool. However, if you have the legendary and all the skins for that legendary, it is excluded. So you can't get coins, so they at least avoided that feel bad of rolling a legendary you have them all for and getting some useless 100 coins. So that was good. But the chance of you getting any random character is low because it's between all the legendaries who you're missing at least the base or a skin for. So it could be anything. I mean, we have 114 mercenaries. I'm not sure how many legendaries we have. It's quite a lot. But basically, it would roll a random legendary, and then if you already had that legendary, it would give you a skin for that character. And this caused some confusion because people were expecting, oh, I'm missing 1 or I'm missing 2 of the new legendaries. This is great because this will help me complete my collection. But instead, they got a skin.
Somebody else.
And sometimes that led to even bigger feels bad moments because and I experienced this, like I got a skin for a character I already had the diamond for. I'm just like,
I mean,
oh,
yeah.
cool. I'm probably never going to use this. Like it helps
Yeah.
me complete the collection, so to speak. But I much would have preferred, one of the new characters getting a skin or getting a diamond for someone I was missing a diamond for, right? But
Too bad.
overall, I think it's really good that they added this. Like
Oh,
we've
yeah.
been asking for a way to get like portraits outside of packs and stuff, and this is a way to do that. And some people did get the base legendary, so it did help some people kind of complete their collection, which is a good thing. But the odds of that were pretty low, unless you're missing a lot of legendaries. Then you probably had better odds. But that was one of those things where there was a lot of confusion about it, so I did want to cover it here. But pretty happy with the new rewards. Like there were 2 of that quest, so you got 2 legendaries, and the final part of the story task was 5 packs, and then you also got coins along the way. So I really liked the rewards this time around. It definitely feels like they got better than they have been in the past, and I'm excited to see what kind of other stuff we can get in the future if they're kind of upping the standard of the PvE rewards a bit, which is good. We've been asking for that kind of thing for a while. Some new achievements as well, which are always kind of fun to mess around with. I just really liked. I don't know if it's because I didn't do PvE for like the better part of like 4 months or something, or 3 months or something like that. So maybe I was just like refreshed from it.
I mean, that's like as good of a reward set as you can probably realistically ask for. Like random, we were even thinking about like specific amounts of like a lot of coins for a specific character instead of these like random, like, okay, I did all the story quests and I got like,
and they gave new character
coins
coins too. Like they weren't
better.
they weren't like bad random ones like we've seen in some of the the tasks sometimes have random ones, and those usually you have a lot of max, they don't necessarily roll very well. But the new story quests, aside from I think like the first 1 or 2 had some mercs from the last drop, but most of the story quests were giving coins for the new mercenaries, which was great. So definitely a step in the right direction there. And now we're also not very far off of finally having a use for all those excess coins. So if the new content is looking interesting to you, and you're sitting on a Scrooge McDuck sized pile of excess coins like some of us are, worry not, you will finally have a way to use them soon. And so that's one thing I kind of recommend. If you don't feel like going through all the effort of grinding all these characters, it's fine. You can wait until the end of the month, and then there's a good chance that you're going to be able to much more easily acquire coins for these new mercenaries as long as you have the mercenaries. So either, open your stored packs, or if you're missing a legendary or 2, maybe it's worth just grinding some PvE to just get them crafted. But once you have all the characters, it should be, and especially if you have a lot of the old ones maxed, it should be relatively easy with the new coin exchange system to max out these characters a lot faster than we've been used to.
Oh yeah. I mean, the dream is still, I think the number that I'm really I'm not sure if I can look up how many excess coins I still have in that way, but like if I could just suddenly disenchant my entire collection and make 3 characters competitively playable, that's a great, whatever that rate is, I think is an insanely good rate. I don't know what that'd have to be, and I could go and figure it out because I don't even have that many coins. So like people with way deeper collections than me should be able to do like more than 3. That's a lot still. Like that. Now we're starting to press into like you suddenly get 5% of the total collection just for free because of this new system. Maybe that's too much. I'm not sure, but
and it's not even like you have to actually destroy your collection like in regular Hearthstone, where, well, you can always, delete these cards, but if you don't have any extras, then you're not really, it's a trade-off there. Here, I mean, if you max these mercenaries, it's just free value. It's just literally free value. And I mean, I haven't looked at what mine have gone up to after opening the packs and grinding out a bunch more, but I totaled it up before the drop, and I was a little bit over 600,000. So that's a lot.
Definitely a lot. And that should translate to like,
Who
in
knows?
theory, I mean, that should like the upper, you should only be getting like the upper limit of characters like instantly leveled up, and that should be something only like 10. And so that's still, because what is it? It's like 2,500 coins ish or something like that for a
Yeah,
max.
it's around there from like nothing to max. It takes about that. So
That's a pretty like bad exchange from whatever 600,000 to 25,000.
yeah, and the thing is, and we've talked about this before, there's not, in my opinion at least, there's no chance in hell they're balancing this around the small handful of people who
Oh
are
yeah,
sitting
you
on
should
these
break.
giant,
Yeah,
like, you wouldn't make a system like this only to appeal to the 1% or the 10% or whatever the number is, because certainly not everybody is in that boat. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more PvP players, right? Because they wouldn't have to worry about leveling up all their stuff. So it feels like they have to know this, right? Like that they need to make the system appealing, because this is the biggest thing people have been asking for since launch, and it's not particularly close. Like it's really not. There's nothing. I mean, maybe the PvE endgame, but even that, like, nothing has been more demanded from this game from day one than, hey, I want a use for these coins that I'm sitting on stacks of because I maxed out Cariel, because I maxed out Rokara. Like, it's been a problem. I mean, I can go look right now. I think Rokara is my most. Rokara. You want to take a guess how many Rokara coins I have, Mullahoo? You can guess too, Chad.
600,000 total. What percentage of those are just Rakara coins?
So I will give you a little hint here. Rokara was one of the characters you get coins from doing the early heroic. So heroic 1-1, heroic 1-2. And obviously I did a ton of those in 1-1 grinding, in the early air elemental grinding. So I have more for her than anyone else. It's like her and like two other rares. I have like absolute ton. Chat's making some
Okay.
guesses.
I'll
55,
say
37.
my initial one was, so I'll go with the higher end then. And I'll say 60,000.
So, all right, so I have 40k, just over 40k, 40,000,
That's still crazy.
690 coins. But like it just doesn't make sense to balance. What I think they're going to do is, I don't think every coin is going to be created equal. I think, and we already have a rough idea, right, of how this is going to work in terms of, we know it's these coins are getting exchanged for another new currency that is going to be related to the PvE endgame, as well as a new way to exchange that new currency for coins for unmaxed mercenaries. So they already established that. And we talked about this before many times in the past, thinking of the prospect of, hey, if they ever did make a coin exchange, they're not going to let me transfer my 40k Rokara coins into, 20
legendaries, yeah.
yeah, into making 20,000 legendary coins, right? Like it's just not likely that that's going to happen, because we have precedent for that. We have seen with dust values in standard and wild and stuff, right? Like, you can dust a legendary for 1/4 of the value of crafting one. And that's like of the same thing. You can dust a common for a much smaller amount, and so on. So we already see a kind of precedent set there that I expect to be similar. And with this new resource, it kind of makes sense, because if it is converting extra coins, I'm guessing you get to choose which characters' extra coins you're converting, and it'll read, hey, this is a rare, hey, this is an epic, and give you more or less proportionally based on the rarity of that character. At least that's kind of my guess at how this is going to work. And then it's going to give you whatever this new currency is in the game, and that will be kind of the base value. And I'm not sure if they're going to make it, more expensive to get random legendary coins versus random rare or epic. They could not. Kind of anybody's guess as to whether that will happen or not. But there's going to be some system in place where you use this new currency you got from your extra coins, and it will give you coins for mercs you have that are not currently maxed out yet. Now, we don't know if that's going to be targetable. I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing it's just going to be a system of I'm not trying to get into magical Christmas land where they're going to make it so you can just target the mercs you want to max them out as easily as possible. But it does kind of incentivize a gameplay loop here of, hey, it pays to max out your old mercenaries even if you're not going to play them, because then your odds of this coin conversion thing giving you coins for mercs you do want to play with, they go up. So it gives you more of a reason to max out these characters who you might not use a whole lot.
To max out, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to think about, and we won't have to wait that much longer because it's expected towards the end of this month, beginning of next month, we're going to get patch 24.6, and that is going to bring with it this change, and we're going to find more about how this all works, and maybe it'll give us a little sneak peek at what this, new currency is going to be used, and we can kind of figure out or come up with some possible ideas of how that could tie into the end game stuff. I know, me personally, I'm expecting it to just they talked about it a little bit, just kind of juicing up your characters and making them more powerful in some way. But obviously you can't really do that in PvP because then that starts getting pay to win elements, right? If someone drops $1,000 on Mercenaries packs and suddenly they have however many thousands of coins to add some extra stats or extra damage, that's not a route we want to go down for PvP. Not at all. We already saw the huge outcry that came about from the Battleground stuff, and that kind of system would be way more invasive. So hopefully we know it sounds like the whatever boosting up these characters is going to be, it's going to be exclusively for PvE, where it's fine if things are not always super balanced in PvE. Obviously you want to strike a good balance where things can be interesting, but they've said before, it's okay if something's overpowered. We're not going to come nerfing your fire team because it's the best farming comp for a lot of bounties, because that's not what they're about. It doesn't, you're not harming anyone but the AI by just beating them with fire over and over again.
Yeah, no, and the I guess we hadn't really even talked a ton about this idea of once we know what the alternate current, we're in terms of the timeline like that, yeah, we're probably going to know what the alternate currency is before we know what the PvE system is, possibly. And that will be cool to speculate on, actually. I forgot that those are going to be tied into each other, or that we were just going to hear about the PvE later. But we might learn that it's, conch shells, and then that's what gets used as your PvE endgame thing, as well as your extra coins thing. Okay, obviously we're going underwater for something. What's that PvE stuff? And so you get to start thinking like that. So that'll be cool. I want to say it again here. I don't know why, but for so long I had assumed that the PvE endgame was going to be a very similar clone of bounties. I don't know why I was thinking that. I would think I was just thinking too quickly about it. That's what I still want it to be, is something that surprises us about being very different from looking like bounties or feeling like bounties. I don't know why I thought that was off the table, but I think it should be still on the table, and that's got me excited. So I am unironically now interested in what this PvE might be, despite not being a PvE player, because I think I wasn't thinking wide enough and cool enough, and there's a chance that it could be something very simple and very cool, like a draft element. But again, there's just so many things, but definitely excited.
No, it's really interesting because I think they can really do a lot with this endgame mode to just give a PvE experience that hasn't really been there a lot of the time, especially for players who have put a bunch of time into maxing out a lot of their characters. I think I'd actually enjoy the PvE in this game quite a bit more if I felt like I was like reasonably being challenged and I was grinding towards a reward that I felt was rewarding. And we've talked about that in the past where, and someone mentioned it in chat today, the new bounties, they all have coins for just the new mercenaries. So take your pick, whatever you enjoy. If you don't have any of those mercs maxed out yet, or only one of two of them maxed out, do whatever you want. Like just whatever you're having the most fun with, or whatever's the fastest for the team you like, you know, free reign, or whatever has the coins that you want to get those characters leveled up first. I think it's really great. And another topic kind of worth touching on here is there were some RNG bounties in this one, namely Babbling Book, Yogg Saron. There was one more, maybe chat knows it here, but there were a few bounties. Oh, I think it was Silas, where he like swaps around stuff on the board or something like that. And these were very RNG heavy bounties, most specifically the Babbling Book and Yogg, because it would spin the wheel of Yogg. Babbling Book made everyone do something fun, so crazy amount of randomness there. And I know Old Guardian did a video talking about why he really didn't like those bounties, but I found it really interesting because as someone who normally isn't very into PvE, those are actually some of my favorite bounties of this drop. Because we got a lot of bounties. We got 19 bounties. Yeah. And I'll preface this by saying I do not want every bounty in Mercenaries to be like these fights. Like, it would be quite annoying if that were the case. But when only like 2 or 3 out of like almost 20 bounties have just like a bit more RNG silliness to them, I found it a lot of fun. I was actually paying attention in that Babbling Book fight while I was farming it, which I almost never do. Like, I'm always just... like, it was fun to watch like all the silly stupid stuff that like happened, because like it was different every time and I didn't know what was going to happen. And even when I lost because of it, I wasn't even mad. Like, I was just like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, I mean, obviously not everyone's going to feel that way, but it felt very thematic for me, that these were the characters they chose to do it with, especially Babbling Book and Yogg. Those are so RNG focused characters in the Hearthstone kind of lore, the WoW lore, that it just felt very thematic, and I enjoyed that, and I liked seeing the different outcomes. I think, to me, one of the reasons I find PvE often gets boring is because we're doing the same thing over and over again, and there's not really much variety to that. It's all just kind of repetition to get the thing you need, and I want, you know, more variety. I want more challenge. That's why roguelikes are often successful, is because you can play them for tens, hundreds of hours, and no 2 runs are exactly the same. You have a different experience. You can pick the same character, but you're going to go down a different path. You're going to fight different enemies. You're going to get different items. That's what makes the genre so strong and so replayable. And that's something Mercenaries, in my opinion, has been kind of lacking for a while. Like, yeah, they have some elements that are like that a bit with the treasures and whatnot, but it's very light on those compared to other big roguelike games. And it's why if someone asked me if I would recommend this to them as a roguelike, I'd probably say no, not at all. I'd go play Slay the Spire or one of like 15 other good roguelikes, because I don't get the enjoyment I get from playing a roguelike from playing Mercenaries PvE. And that's fine if that wasn't what they were kind of claiming the game is trying to be when they first advertised it, because that's what they said, is Hearthstone Mercenaries is Hearthstone's take on a roguelike PvE experience. And I just am not seeing that to its full... Like, the elements are there. It's just, it's not realizing the things that makes those games in that genre so strong and so infinitely replayable. Like, if I was having fun infinitely replaying these bosses because it was different and interesting each time, I would probably still be playing PvE even with having all my characters maxed out. And that's my hope for what the end game is going to be, is it's going to tap into that and say, hey, here is a, you know, potentially infinitely replayable experience where things are going to be different every time. And there's a lot of PvE content now to where they can probably more easily do procedurally generated endless dungeons or something like that, where things get harder and harder. So you have to actually, power up your characters with this new resource and see how far you can go. Like, just steal it from Diablo. It's the same company. Like, I love grinding Diablo. Yeah. Like, it's so much fun to me. Like, just you're progressing your character more, and you're seeing how far you can push, and it gets more challenging and interesting. And I want that to be in Mercenaries. I want to have more enjoyment doing PvP or PvE once I'm maxed out with all my characters. Like, it'd be great just for the game. It would be great from a content perspective as well. It would just be a very much needed improvement to a flawed PvE system in its current state. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for the end game system is like, and these things are so popular in other roguelikes, and roguelikes are a huge genre. Like, it would not surprise me if there's a very large overlap in people who enjoy games like Hearthstone or Magic or other strategy games enjoying roguelikes. It's just, it's a very appealing thing, and I think they could really hook a lot of people into it if they made the PvE experience more like that. Now, I don't know if it's realistic to hope that PvE in its base form is ever going to evolve to that, because that would require a huge amount of reworking things and whatnot, and it's kind of hard to justify doing stuff like that when it's more profitable to just make new content, right? Is it like, just pump out some more bounties, pump out some new mercenaries? You could make money off of it, it's possible, but it's a lot harder to justify the amount of work that would take. So I'm hoping Endgame kind of satisfies that.
I think, honestly, even just hearing it in a vacuum again, where we're saying like, oh, we just got like 19 bounties, like that number for the first time is really striking me as like, okay, give them dump the bucket over, right? Like, shake out the bucket, because we're going to this next thing. Like, the 19 is such like an unhinged number to release of like individual, again, like they're all so very similar, to the point where, like, kind of, again, to borrow your language in that sense, like, they could probably just procedurally generate what every bounty is now, to the point that I think the real hopium would be that the PvE mode is going to be so different from bounties, but has been so delayed, if anything, the core delay of the entire game, that they've just slow rolled bounties over a year, essentially pretending that that's the PvE game, like, element of the game, when in reality it's very not. And they hit us with the real PvE, and it's totally different, and it somehow simulates that Battlegrounds start of run, that Slay the Spire start of run, no input cost, just run it. It's different, it's fun, go crazy. And that's what the PvE system looks like. And instead, you just get an incentive to play bounties and have your PvP comp, because you can use that resource here. But it's totally different. I think that, to me, is like the ultimate hopium, where the delay is actually this mode. It's something completely unlike what we're expecting. And the bounties have just been filler. I think that would, to me, kind of round and resolve everything up for me. So yeah, I think that's where my new hopium kind of stores sit.
I think there is definitely a lot of copium with that hopium, but I would love to see something like that as well. From their prior wording, I don't think that's what we're going to get, mainly because it sounds like the end game is really going to be focused around, hey, leveling up your characters was why you were doing a lot of these bounties. Now you've got them all leveled up. Well, now you can actually put them to the test and have challenging content. Because once you have most of your characters leveled up, or even just a good team or two, a lot of these fights aren't very challenging. I mean, some of the heroics, sure, and I do really love the boss designs. I think, like, generally you can probably procedurally generate a lot of the fights up to the boss, and I think that's one of the big problems with PvE as a whole. Is it's kind of boring, because you're not really thinking about what you have to do to get to these bosses. Like, if you just made the PvE content just fighting the bosses, I think a lot more people would probably like it. If you didn't have to bosses, go... like, a lot of these other roguelikes have boss rush modes where you can do that. You can just say, like, screw the stuff in between. I'm just going to fight boss after boss after boss. I think some people would really enjoy that, because I don't think a ton of people enjoy all the filler fights leading up to the boss. Like, it's just most of the time, sure, there are encounters, especially in heroic sometimes, where you have to think about it, but overall, like when I'm farming, I'm not looking at what the fights leading up to the boss are a lot of the time. I'm just instinctually clicking the buttons that I know blow everything up, and I'm not even paying attention to whether my opponent is Edwin or Nefarian, or it doesn't matter like most of the time, because they just die instantly. And maybe that's not the experience, when you're still leveling up your characters, but once you get, one team leveled up, it's kind of the experience it is. And that's a very common complaint I've heard from people who've tried to get back into the mode, is like they just can't handle how long it takes to get through bounties. It's just and there's no. It'd be different. I don't think the length would be a problem if people felt like they were being challenged, right? Like if they actually, because then it wouldn't feel like I'm just auto clicking and doing this. It'd be like, oh, I actually have to think. I'm up against Murlocs here, and they have damage resistance or whatever, or they're scaling more attacks, so I'll have to put up a taunt. If people actually had to make those decisions more often, probably would like the PvE more. I
think they would just like the PvP at that point, right? Like I think at that point, I that's why I feel like it needs to be almost different than just fancy bounties. Like I truly struggle to think of how you can do fancier bounties in any meaningful way that will actually satisfy like the group, the company of players at large, right? Like because you can't just scale the numbers, and even like an ascension level kind of thing, like you can't just keep adding numbers to things, because that doesn't, at a certain point, it's not like skill based that you're beating it. You're just like, oh, the number's too big, I just lose, and so that doesn't feel fun. That's why, another reason why I kind of feel like it could be or should be this kind of take on a, like, again, Battlegrounds is just what I keep going to, of like how you need your PvE mode to be, where it's, you don't know what the game is going to be like. You just click play and you have a choice, and your choice is the fun part right at the beginning, and then you start making choices.
Yeah, I think there's
Bounties
a good argument
that.
for that, for sure. Like I think that's something Mercs could use in general, and I mean, we've been asking for that for PvP for a long time. Just like, let people try it. If you let people try it without the actual investment, you're going to hook a lot more people into the gameplay loop. But you can't hook people into what I see as the most fun part of the game, when they have to spend tens plus hours just doing something that a lot of people just aren't that into. Like and like Hearthstone as a game is a multiplayer game. Like, yeah, there've been single player stuff, and that's great, and I'm glad we have it. Like, I don't mind that it exists, but I think the fact that we have locked what most players for the general Hearthstone game are used to experiencing, multiplayer, the full multiplayer experience at least, the fact that that's locked behind a PvE experience, whether you want it to be or not, has hurt the game in the long term. And just giving that Battlegrounds ability of, hey, I'm just going to press Mercenaries and press play, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to see what happens, would be such a huge boon to the mode. And I'm sure some people get that experience out of PvE. There's a reason why a lot of people do play it, but I'm not one of those people. And a lot of us here aren't those people. Like, that's why I've formed, my community around the PvP stuff first, because that's what has always been appealing to me for the game. That's why I got into the game. I didn't care I didn't even pre-order the mercenary stuff, because I saw the PvE gameplay, and frankly, I wasn't very impressed. It didn't look that interesting to me, and I played it on launch, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. But again, it didn't really click with me as something that I just wanted to do. Maybe going through it for the story or something casually was fine, but I wasn't going to grind it to max out all these characters. Like, the incentive didn't exist for me. And then I saw some people play PvP, and I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. Like, this is up my alley. This is kind of what I want to do. Now I just have to suffer through, 100 hours of grinding to get there or whatever it is, right? I mean, we've talked about that a lot before, but it's worth repeating, right? Like, that is something they should strive for at some point. I mean, they've already, done something that I gave up hope on them ever doing in announcing a coin exchange. So who knows, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
Scott, I mean, that has always been my dying breath about this game mode, is just like, it is truly only a matter of time, because you don't have to do anything. It's simply a matter of, like, you're looking at a switchboard. You can just make some of the red lights green, and the game is just awesome. When and how and will they decide to do that, essentially? Unclear. And what more do they take and decide to add to it? Unclear. But I've always seen Mercenaries as a game where, like, for every dollar that Blizzard wants to spend on the game mode, it will come back like 5 and 10-fold, like, very easily. And it's just a matter of convincing Blizzard to themselves that it's worth doing. And
Yeah.
It sucks that they kind of like beefed at the beginning. So it's harder internally to even convince themselves, I'm sure now, which is unlucky. But yeah, I see this game as just such an amazing skeleton. And so that's why I've been wanting to, like, hang on to the story for so long in that sense, and, like, to truly kind of wait it out. Because imagine if they just started from day one and it was just like PvP, everything was unlocked, everyone can beta it or whatever for 6 months.
Would have been totally different. Like,
holy moly, it would have been awesome. So
it would have been, I think they really, really shot themselves in the foot, the way the game ended up releasing, and the marketing and the pre-orders, and it did a lot of damage. That some of that damage is going to be hard to undo, frankly. I mean, they've made improvements, and there are other improvements coming, and those are great. But I don't think it should be understated, the damage that launch kind of did. And one of the conclusions of one of the things I'm putting together for the anniversary next week is, well, it's been a year where it should have been at launch now. And and you can go back to our early podcasts and my early PvP stuff, and you can see I was a lot more frustrated about it then than I am now. And that's because I've come to the acceptance stage of what this is. It's been essentially a beta in all but name. Battlegrounds had the beta title for how long before they took it off? Well, they didn't give Mercenaries the beta tag because they were asking people to pony up $30, $50, $100 for pre-orders. But that's what it was. It was a beta. The game needed another year in the oven, and the more we've seen stuff change and the more we see the stuff on the horizon, the more I'm convinced that the game would have had much greater initial success, potentially much better long-term profitability, if they just waited another year and launched it with pretty much everything we have now, plus the excess coin fix and whatnot, and then having PvE endgame only be it's October, maybe like 4 months away from launch. That's a lot more appealing than a year and 4 months. So, like, the fact that we even had to wait over a year for the issue of excess coins to be properly addressed and dealt with, like, that's not really acceptable from a company of this size to me. Like, it just, like, at least not if you're launching what is supposed to be a 1.0, like a relatively finished first version of a product. Like, that's something, hey, we're early access and we'll get there when we get there, is kind of what it felt like. And so, I mean, a lot of
QA testing in that sense, like
that too.
The world at large certainly, like, turboed. I mean, to a certain extent, if they released it now, they would have had to still end up doing like 6 months of randomness, essentially, for us to figure out the things that took us a year this time instead, because, like, so many things were kind of filtered through the community, and even realizing the community cared to then kind of juice up the team, supposedly. So it's, I almost wonder if they were, like, thankful to just let it rip and let everybody limit testings for a year while stuff was being fixed. Because I wonder if this is just like the only way it was going to get shipped was, like, then brace themselves and then just get through it for a year. I'm not sure.
I think the big thing is a lot of time and resources had been put into the mode, and the people in charge of managing, where the effort and the money goes, they weren't willing to justify, hey, this is actually taking longer than we need, like before we can actually make a return on this investment. You just got to get it out now, whether it's ready or not. I mean, we already know it was delayed more than once. So to me, it's just like super clear the way I see it. It's they wanted a return on this investment, and that return on the investment would also justify future development costs. And they didn't want to have to wait a whole another year for that. It's also part of just being part of a bigger company overall. Maybe they needed something to help pad out those Q4 sales. Maybe they need something to help hold them over until they launched the Diablo 2 remaster in a couple months, or they needed something to bolster those sales. And so instead of waiting like they probably should have, they said, all right, we're shipping it, and we're going to really hype people up in our marketing to get them to buy these expensive pre-orders, which is basically, I mean, it was almost like getting people to pre-order from a new Hearthstone set, which is a ton of money. They've talked about how pre-ordering for Constructed is like what makes them all their money, or a lot of their money, is the Constructed pre-orders. And that's kind of what they did with this, but they, like, a lot of the times the people in those making those decisions are viewing things in the short term rather than the long term, because sometimes those people aren't there in the long term. Sometimes it could be a totally different person. And speaking of different people, you know, stuff could be changing because Hearthstone is currently without a game director lead person thing. That's probably not the right title, but I'm sure most of you know what I mean by that. Because Ixar left kind of recently. He's moving to he's gonna be involved with, I think, League of Legends now. So good for him. But this could be awesome and this could be terrible. We don't really know, but I'm gonna hope that whoever the new lead ends up being, I'm hopeful that they're going to be more involved and see more of the potential of Mercenaries. Because at least my impression was I asked questions about it in some of the AMAs and stuff, and I never really got the feeling that he was very involved with the mode. Now, that could be totally wrong. I'm, not a person who works there, so I have no idea. And I'm not deeply familiar with the different positions in game development, and so who knows? But it could be a really good thing, because maybe the new person comes in and sees, hey, there's a lot of potential for getting more players to play this, making more money off this. Let's put more development resources into it. Or, I mean, the opposite could happen. They could say, hey, we're putting a lot of resources into this, and it's not justifying its cost. So, and he wasn't even in the position that long, right? That's also worth kind of mentioning. Well, they did say they made quite a bundle off of Mercenaries. At least that was what the last director said shortly before he left. He said they Mercenaries exceeded their financial expectations, at least after it launched. We don't really know much in the long term about if it has continued to make them a bunch of money or not. They haven't really talked about it very much, but at least the initial launch stuff, they did say it exceeded what they were expecting mode to perform, at least in terms of making money. Yeah, whole lot there. I do think I want to move on to our kind of last section of the show. Give us some time to do this. Yeah, so we're gonna play some PvP, because we have all of these. I mean, I maxed out all this stuff, so got the full collection again.
Yeah.
And now we can lend stuff. So that means that I can lend Mullahoo here whatever his heart desires to test and try out. And I have some stuff I want to try out as well. I'm gonna throw one together. But yeah, we're gonna do some PvP to close out the episode here.
Jeez, yeah, I don't even know where to start in terms of something. But I mean, definitely we can full share the thing. I'm sure that even after playing like a game, I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, I wanna be able to do this guy and this guy together. This combo seems faster with that one. I like that full modern deck, the new only new cards deck.
Yeah, right. It's, I'm putting the demon comp I saw earlier together. Let's see, it was Archimond, Deathwing, Nero, Diraxis, Kurtrus, Gul'dan. No greens.
Okay.
Which is kind of crazy, but I love it.
I was gonna say, what's the chat? What's the best thing for us to mess around with here? If we've got everything. If we've got everything.
Yeah, is there anything chat wants to see?
We want to see.
Kurtrus. Hold on. Yeah. So here, I'll let me swap over the overlay.
Definitely some arcane stuff sounds fun.
Yeah, so I have here I'll send you a challenge, and if you want to just like look through what I have, and then we can add stuff if there's anything.
Sure, I get to see them when you share.
Yeah, you can take a look. Oh, do you want to challenge me? Since I think you have that quest, right?
Yeah.
Value.
Ching.
I'm pretty sure all my comps are new stuff.
Juicy, okay.
And if you click on it, you can see like which has the equipments. Yeah. And if you like click on the character, it'll show you like what equipments they have.
Ooh, actually, it's not showing me the equipments.
Oh, really? Like if you click it and then click like the character, it doesn't. Oh,
maybe I have to choose not from like the external overlay thing. Maybe if I hit choose and it lets me go in. Let me see.
If you click it, you can't click it on like the right side above choose. Maybe it's just because maybe that's how borrowing works.
Yeah, weird.
Most of these decks are pretty good though. Yeah, I've had success with pretty much all of them. Playing 2 of these tonight. The arcane one I think could be really cool.
Yeah, what is the?
So that one you're using Trigor purely defensively, so they have to target your Trigor, and they kind of have to leave Blinkfox and Khadgar alone. So you get to transform Khadgar, and then you start getting Blinkfox mana blinks, and Blinkfox just deals a lot of damage.
Yeah, I'm into some Blinkfox shenanigans here for sure.
Let's see.
Oh, a mono blue. Mono blue sounds kind of hype too. You get like Maestra.
Maestra's pretty nuts with the Medivh buff too.
Yeah, that's what I say. Yeah, like if it was like Medivh, and then Maestra, Sky Admiral.
Yeah, so that was in Master Puppet's original build. There were no greens in this. He had Maestra, Cookie, and Rogers on the bench, but I was changing things up a little bit to try out something new.
Oh yeah, that sounds like we could find better 5 blue guys to do a funky.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Like there's some very interesting combinations you can do here. I think I'm gonna try the demons. I haven't played the demons yet. It was cool playing against them earlier.
Oh, Arana can go on that one. Yeah, that's interesting too.
Arana is really sick. Arana is really, really cool. I like her a lot. The fact that she can bounce every turn and like reapply good battle cries is like very strong.
Huh.
And like it's good on its own, but when you have at least one other night elf and the night elf one has a bunch or demon, like you just stacks up pretty quick because her thing gives +2 Fel, Arcane, and Nature damage, and you get +1 more for each other Night Elf or Demon.
Crazy. Malfurion in this is a spicy one.
Holy yeah. He was actually pretty good in it.
Alright, let's see.
Oh yeah, I don't have a Garona comp. I could put one together. It's so hard to to try them all. There's so many ideas.
Is there a way can Corona start as a caster in any way, or is it only like an ETB kind of thing?
I don't think so. You can start as a neutral. I don't think she can start as a caster.
Okay, this seems correct.
Oh god, I love the Deathwing lion animation. It's so sick.
Oh, the Diamond Deathwing here, right?
Oh, this is funny. This is literally, so the comp you're playing was what I was playing on stream a bunch today, and I ran into what I'm playing now. Now, because I was really cool, though. I should get the deck tracker up, too. That Deathwing Diamond is so sick.
Interesting. That's right. So she did. So I don't think there was a way to come. Oh my god, that's massive.
A lot of damage.
Nasty, huh?
Nah, that's just disgusting.
That's just nasty, huh? 15 is so cringe for this Blizzard here. 14 is not 15.
Yeah, you gotta transform him if you want that extra spell damage.
Oh, but that's perfect. Okay, so maybe we do this then. My god, this is also so awkward.
I wonder if it's worth doing. Oh.
I also don't know if this works here, but we're gonna rip it.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah, so the Khadgar numbers are crazy.
Yeah, Khadgar's ridiculous.
Okay, so that one's always gonna happen first. Okay. Pop. Monkey-ish fireball. Let me take this.
So these demons deal quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, holy moly. AoE deal 12 and then the stacking fell damage. So can you act? Oh, only enemy dragon summon. Okay. I was gonna say, holy moly, it's so much. Okay. Get cheeky. The Deathwing stealing a dragon. I was like, this doesn't steal real dragons, does it?
No, just summons. Also, what's hilarious, and I wish they would change this, but I don't think they're going to. When a Nefarian summons a dragon, it comes to your side and it still punches whatever Nefarian swung into.
Ah. That's bizarre. So like it can still double attack like that.
Yeah, it's because it's weird. It's how like the targeting works. So you might notice on Ysera, her discover is actually different than. Not only can it not bounce, so that's a downside, but its speeds up your whole side. So it's actually a lot better than we initially thought. Yeah, it speeds up your whole side that turn. So it's kind of like Karen.
Wait, which part of the
second discover? Yeah, Emerald Oracle.
Like
let's see. I need to decide. I guess I will just do this.
Nah, you're saying Emerald Oracle is an endurance aura?
Yeah.
What? It says A.
Yeah, so the wording on the initial one is wrong, but when you click the discover or click the choose one, it has the proper wording.
That's not.
It probably someone was theorizing it got changed near the end. No.
Massive.
Rip. Oh, that's a big AoE. I forgot it wouldn't go off at the end of turn if I did it that way. That's all right. It's fine. We will do this.
My quest, my revenge, it all ends here.
Oh, he has an animation. That's cool. I wonder if that's new.
The eyes of the Earth Mother are upon us.
Here comes Mr. Bane.
Wow, your mercs. That's
Yeah.
so. But unfortunately, you can't bounce the enemies anymore.
Yeah, you can only bounce your own
Okay.
stuff.
Wow.
The DH quest reward. I didn't know that.
Weird that it's so much better and so much worse than we thought.
Yeah, I think it balances out. I also think bouncing an enemy merc would have got really fucking annoying, even though I liked the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean,
it would have been
understandable, but
it would have been cool. But I'm happy the speed up, because you can like 5-speed Bane AoE, which is kind of disgusting.
yeah, no, I mean that's pretty juicy. I hear it's unfortunately not too great, but it's just what a weird ability.
Yeah, it's very strong. It's a very interesting ability.
Huh.
Like, look at all that fell damage.
Big laser beam.
Oh, you bounced him.
Oh, wait, what? Oh, did I just literally click
I think you clicked the wrong one.
I don't even think that. So that's weird. I think it. I mean, obviously, pawn. I thought that I had picked and canceled it, and then retargeted him with it, but I don't remember retargeting with the.
So both of them target.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's.
It's okay. These things happen.
It feels a little medium. Well,
I guess I do this.
Being able to pick up the grounding totem is cool though, with the Ysera pickup like that.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Like, can we get a Bane, Bonsamdi, Medivh, Ysera? We got double nature that way. Maybe we get a Longshin in there somehow.
We got Gul'dan coming out.
The biggest Gul'dan bonus spell damage you've ever seen.
Now spectating should be on. Looks like it is. All right, so we get. It's still kind of scary. Oh, that could be kind of cool. Oh, he's not a demon though.
I feel like the Malchus are reset as well.
Might not be able to get through this healing.
Right, this chain heal's about to go.
Chain heal's really good.
Why did that not do extra damage against the protector? Am I stupid? Oh.
No, so it doesn't deal extra damage. The protector takes 10.
Oh, it just takes 10 more
from
later.
other sources.
Weird.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Reading his tech. I have no nature combos with the other thing. I mean,
Oh, this isn't fell either. Yikes. That's concerning. Oh, screw it.
it counterspells it? Okay, it still happens.
Yeah, it still
I was
happens.
like, damn,
that
would be
crazy.
so sick.
Oh no, I didn't attack.
I think you're
Oh no, you attacked. That was still kind of close though.
All right, obviously wild misclick, but wow, I never would have expected Ysera to be that. So many characters are a lot different than the patch notes text.
The big ones are Ysera, and the patch notes didn't tell us about Khadgar. Khadgar's kind of crazy.
One of those, the Medivh one.
No, it was Khadgar. Khadgar's the transform.
Right, but wait, so what about? Oh, right, because it had the extra.
Yeah, like the patch notes didn't have his transformed abilities, I think. Or he was in the actual patch notes, I'm not sure. Maybe it was the reveal that didn't have them. Something didn't have them. Because we didn't know initially. I think maybe it was the reveal then. Because it all came out like the same day. Yeah, that's right. It was in the patch notes, but it wasn't in the reveal. There are a few other things like that. Like, we didn't know Gen turned into a fighter.
Yep.
For Dalaran!
This is one of the comps I really like. Yeah, we'll just full open it.
Getting a little spicy over here too. This I do see a world where this
A wise decision.
this comp could get a little tweaky. Well, that's a lot of red guys. I love it.
It's true.
Oh, does that work? All right, we're limit testing. I don't know if that does anything. But we're gonna find out.
I think I want it like this. We shall see.
I guess it's not. It's not neat enough.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but I saw someone playing that arcane build on ladder today, and I thought it was really neat.
This arcane one.
Yeah.
So do you know if Blink Fox? So I hit the arcane, or like the Hearthfire thing on my Blink Fox roll. Would that have upgraded my other Khadgar's?
I don't
Arcane
know.
Surge?
Actually, I do not know how that interaction works.
And you shifted to
Blue.
blue at.
Because of the item.
Oh, because just your item says whenever you deal damage, you roll swap with the thingy.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
But
yep.
after you deal damage, right? After
Yeah.
you deal damage. So you don't get the crit guaranteed or anything.
Yeah, you can steal his upgraded abilities too.
This seems like such a goofy amount of stat stacking like this. That's I guess I see that why that's a cool way to use Trigor to get benefits off of the Hearthfires like that.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
This is going to be kind of silly, but I'm going to do it anyway.
It does not seem that hard to cast 12 unique ones like that. Did we learn anything else about the test?
It's not that hard actually. Like
Yeah.
I've done it a few times.
Oh,
Also, Tess is the new Trigor now.
yeah.
Blue Trigor.
Holy, that's so loud. Did we?
We both transformed. You're both united for Dal.
Huh. Okay.
The Archmage abilities make sense to seal, but the normal abilities do code that probably shouldn't be run on other characters. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't upgrade, because I've done that. I've used his abilities before, but most of the time because I've done it with like Tess stealing abilities. Most of the time by the time that happens, Khadgar's already upgraded because you just run one of his equipment. You only need to use 2 abilities, which is kind of ridiculous. Like that's like nothing. Oh yeah, we can do.
Yeah, these are so different.
This.
That work? I have no idea if that works.
Only one way to find out.
Job's done.
I've had a lot of fun with Gan and
Khadgar's
Tess.
crazy for sure.
Khadgar's nuts. Khadgar's actually crazy. Oh, it Trigored again.
So she just keeps that forever
No, so the first one,
until the
I got it in 2 different ways. So my first ability, I hit you with a thing, and then it stole Trigor's randomly. And the other one I discovered, and Trigor was one of the 3 options.
Powerful. Oh, okay. That's what that discover was there. Okay.
Yeah, there's the Discover. The only downside about this version of Arcane is Longjin doesn't get as big.
Yeah, that really is not big at all.
I think the big combo is if you can keep your Khadgar alive, you can just Blink Fox, reduce the cooldown, and then start doing some silly things. But Longjin isn't as much of a hard carry in that version.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Here,
This also is not the move.
take this.
Very noticeably, like even just going between like 6 months ago and now, the biggest difference I would say is this idea of like the color swapping being
Color swapping
between
so
Maestra
cool.
and Khadgar, or like not Khadgar, but like Tess and Gen and Maestra, and so many different mercs like that. That's probably the one biggest, most striking difference I would say.
I absolutely love the color swapping. I think it's so cool. It adds such an interesting level of depth to the design.
Yeah, that alone like really just blows up so much of having to, again, weirdly, unfortunately, kind of punishes the no deck tracker energy, where like it's yet another thing that you have to be
To
like,
track, yeah.
oof, I have to look at this thing too. I mean, it's just you really just have to pay attention really aggressively when you play this game. It seems like more than anything.
There's a lot of paying attention now. Like,
And there already was a shit ton, but
yeah. Yeah, this patch definitely gives that kind of feeling of like switching in Pokemon. Like it adds a level of depth to benches that really wasn't there before. It's like you could have a plan for your bench, but your opponent could always limit that plan. A big thing we've seen this with is the Frost Valera decks, where those are kind of reliant on getting Valera and then one of your Frost units like Belinda or Varden in with Valera for the speed up, because the speed up is what makes them busted. And if your opponent just doesn't let you get those like double swap ins, that whole comp just completely falls apart. And there are a lot of comps like that, like the Longjin Arcane comp. Like if you don't get Longjin and Tyrande in at the same time, they're both a lot worse than they would be otherwise. So it's really quite interesting. I think it adds such a more interesting level to the gameplay. I'm a big fan.
Just the fact that it doesn't, it literally almost doubles everything that we used to have to do. Like that's such an enormous jump. I mean, like we were saying, where it was it feels like we got so many more mercs than before, when we in fact got even fewer than we normally get. And it's rapidly multiplying, but not in a way that truly feels power creepy, honestly. Like it just feels like complexity diversifying, not necessarily like the power level is too much. So that's been good. Even like the Khadgar and stuff, like it seems strong, but not just busted.
Yeah, I think it's finding a pretty good happy medium to an extent. Setting Arana's attack 0 is actually hella annoying. We'll do this.
Why does it say that Blizzard is? Oh, just because we have the equipment that makes it root.
Yeah, so it starts off of it refreshes 1 at the start.
Interesting.
Oh, I forgot that
Big laser beam over the top.
Oh, that was a mistake. 7 isn't less than 7 true. That's math.
Wow, check your weapons just doesn't even have a cooldown. That is kind of a lot for just like a relatively fast laser beam like that.
Yeah. It's just
like it goes around things.
It's pretty good.
What a weird meme direction to take the Malchezaar design.
Yeah, I never would
like
have
the party
predicted the way he went, but I really love it.
It's cute.
It's quite funny.
There's some good skins to go with it, I think, too, right? Actually, the chess piece one is cool.
The chess piece, he's got a chess piece. He has the one where he's doing like a JoJo pose. It's kind of hilarious. He has really good skins. I'm a fan. Both get a swap in.
Who shall be next? Take my blade.
And these aren't necessarily the monkey Elises, right? These are the ones that are going like a lot later.
Yeah, like the monkey's kind of a backup. Yeah, I like the direction with the Malchezaar. It's been fun. This.
I guess I like wasn't getting the honestly, I really like the idea of building a Maestra deck that really gets to decide when they want to trigger her. Like with this, the Elise was theoretically I could have taken out my Maestra a long time ago, but there's got to be a really cool way to build. That's so much damage.
Yeah,
There's gotta be a
Ysera's
cool way
kind
to
of
build her.
nuts. Ysera's way better than I thought she was, admittedly.
She just sings.
Yeah, I love the Arana singing. It's quite funny. And one of the reasons why the comp you're playing I think is so powerful is because it's hard to focus all the threats. Like if I'm focusing Khadgar, I can't kill the Elise. And it's actually AFK singing. That's a fun fact. I didn't know that. Ooh, what do we do here? This is scary.
Have I just actively been punting my monkey steps too? She Elise has two different leveling up abilities. Weird.
Oh, for the monkey?
Yeah. No, or just like the far right, like boulder into etc. Or those like loop through. But guiding path, or does guiding path just always, no matter what, advances the monkey?
It always advances it one
Wherever you
step
are.
and heals.
That's fine.
Eh. This.
Yeah, this is cringe, but
I think you're pretty far ahead. This was one of my first brews. I'm not sure if it'll have much long-term staying power, but it's damn fun to play when it works.
oh, the big AoE true chunky.
But Ricochet had like a crazy run with the deck you're playing. He made that one, and he won
sweet.
like, I think he told me he went like 18-3 or something. Like he absolutely destroyed people, and I see why. I was playing it earlier, and I was very impressed with how well it performed.
Does this work the way I want it to, or is this just a complete fuck up?
Oof. I think I'm gonna get rolled here. Pray for the Reno death rattle. Oh, I do have mouth healing. I forgot about that. Look at that Elise. Elise just got gigantic.
Yeah, she's massive.
Oh, that's so it does hit your own guys for the spell damage.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've yet to see that one. I'm still probably gonna die.
190. Holy gee. Yeah, I do feel favored here.
Just a little.
So many new faces.
And you didn't even have to get the Maestra switch in.
Still had all these.
Oh, apparently the music notes effects had the sound tied to it. That's a fun fact.
Did I shoot myself? Oh, just from the fell weakness thing.
Yeah, it's the fell weakness. It's a very cool comp, though. I'm a big fan. Ysera has been very impressive in it.
Yeah, she's been kind of cranking.
And I'm like really happy that she's like good in something outside of dragons. I thought she'd be fine in dragons, and she probably is.
Yeah, I mean the fact that I haven't really cast this verdant thing at all, or like the actual like verdant breath healing at all.
Yeah, you don't really need to in this build, honestly.
I mean, obviously, it just doesn't really heal another dragon at any point, but
Yeah, you just bounce back.
yeah, I can't believe that other ability is just so much different than what we expected. But you really don't need the
very
dragon
different
at all with her.
Oh wow,
She
that's
seems
crazy. The same voice actress as AFK and Tess Gray. Man, I never would have guessed that either. That's some range. Let's see. Now I can go off. Off one yet. One of my favorites.
Hopefully it's not the mirror.
It'd be funny if he did get a mirror.
It's gonna be a belligerent mirror if it's the mirror.
Oh, that makes me feel like it might be. I think it is.
A doobie looking mirror. Uh-oh, so this is a testament to not knowing how the mirror goes. Let's see.
Listen to
Oh, it's the mirror.
Holy moly.
This mirror is really funny.
Yeah. Does it not even get there? It seems like this is just the most degen.
It's a really silly mirror.
Let's see if I can like intuitively figure out like an angle to work it without really having.
That would be funny if we got an AFK mark. Wonder how that would even work. Just your abilities are on cooldown for one turn. But they do something really strong. Alright, not even sure best course of is here. It's probably DS. Question mark. I've played the summon mirror before, but never a full-on, like, the two comps were exactly the same.
I'm just gonna get a little weird. I don't think I need to go for this other one.
Or did neither of us bounce? That's hilarious. Both thought the other one was gonna bounce.
Right.
I have not put one zombie between two boggies and used Deal of Vanity. That actually sounds pretty funny. Just like
that is powerful, actually. Yeah.
I dig it.
What if this Yu'lon was just Khadgar?
Khadgar is probably like correct, but I think you putting Khadgar over Medivh instead of Khadgar over Yu'lon.
Oh, no, I could see that.
I don't think the stats for Medivh are actually needed.
No, it's just like if you wanted to have, it's almost like if you could figure out if you wanted somehow your rotation to be like pump and then real spell, pump and then real spell
Yeah.
instead of Yu'lon just like spam healing every turn.
Because Khadgar is like another Yu'lon, except actually has more damage.
God, the damage reduction on this boggy thing is crazy.
Oh, you think it's crazy now? Wait till you see when the second one pops up. Kind of interesting though in the mirror here. Like I think you get an advantage by not being the one to bounce.
Just because I can like now use my once on D again, essentially, if I wanted to.
Well, mainly because you were able to get more damage on my Nemsy.
Right. Yeah.
Because you get the same advantage of a bounce that I get, except I had to burn a whole action to do that. Was you got to do damage.
Jade serpent guide you.
Huh.
But this is also where
This comp could also just have 3 completely different Pokemon on my bench, and it would just be a completely different, interesting deck
Yep.
too. It's crazy to think about the options there.
oh wait, I ordered this not how I wanted to, but the Boggies are protecting each other now, which is fine. Meant to do this differently though. Yeah, this is gonna get pretty silly pretty fast.
Yeah, holy boggy Batman.
The Boggy mirrors
Does
are
does
funny.
Bogonomics double pump boggies?
It does,
if
yep.
do? Of course it does. Why
It does double pump.
why wouldn't it?
The Boggies get really, really big. I had a game where they were like 55 105s.
Just absolutely joke. I mean, the Zoth thing, literally what that heals me, I think, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
True. Also.
I won't take that.
No,
So this is a big lesson about the mirror match here.
the N'Zoth
Always bring out N'Zoth when things get bounced, because if your opponent does it and you don't, it gets a little stupid. As you can see here by the 3 Boggies. It's probably this. Yeah, I can put in between triple Boggies, even more protection. If only.
You think that
We're gonna do the vanity because it's a fun thing to do.
Is this just a hard lock? Am I just like actually checkmated already?
The other fun thing is I could also 2-speed just blow these up right now for 70
It's already
damage
that
without
low?
crit. It's because Gift of
That's only
N'Zoth
5,
refreshes
holy
too.
moly. Yeah, and even 5 is like, honestly, I thought it was higher than that.
I'm not gonna do it though because I want to beat down with the Boggies instead. I don't want them to explode.
I mean, I'm so unbelievably toast.
job done.
Yeah, there are a lot of comps that like once you get the double Boggy down, there's not a whole lot you can do.
Yeah,
Like-
holy mo like yeah, what would you, especially when turn 1, just like pick it up, reset, and you put out, you have double boggy, you have N'Zoth and Cho and stuff, like decks seem,
And they're just protecting each other. Like, look at that 12 damage Yulon to a green.
it shows how, though, I was literally just saying like, damn, my bench could have 3 completely different dudes in it. It really doesn't seem that impossible to have the Cthulhu, like just to have a Cthulhu on your bench and literally just go and like munching for like a tech sideboard card like that kind of. You already have the N'Zoth plus the Cthulhu Old God kind of synergy potentially if you wanted to hold on to N'Zoth.
Yeah.
And you need 2 hate cards, I guess, for the enemy boggies. But, cool.
It's, yeah, this comp is pretty nuts. Though, this is another reason why Khadgar is really good in the mirror, because you can root their Boggies every turn once he transforms. And the Boggies are too slow to attack, so the only way you can actually get the value from them is blowing them up. But you're still getting value from them because they're protecting all your stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean these guys are. I can't deal with these. I don't think my deck has outs to the big boy here.
Like I'll do the funny thing now. Right, because that's damage.
I'll click some buttons to let you blow me up.
Thank you. this here.
This deck is giving me some toxic vibes. Not gonna lie.
It definitely can be
Obviously, I have hard
polarizing.
but
Like,
holy Munch City Batman.
like
Got
yeah,
him.
boom, explosion. Although now, to be fair, nobody has boggies. Boggies are gone. No bogging allowed anymore. But yeah, you can see why the boggy stuff gets a little out of hand. And it happens so quick.
Holy, yeah, and like the fact that it's just on turn 2, you have double boggy and they're monstrous. Like, cool. So, have you been playing this deck much at all on ladder? In that
Yeah,
sense?
I played
Does
decent.
it feel like there is a bad matchup?
Oh yeah,
Like, is it one where
you
you're just,
can.
like, you
It's not
toss, like,
unbeatable.
what's the top one?
Maestro can be kind of annoying for it. But this farms some of the old comps like pretty hard. I think the new troll, or sometimes when opponents have good battle guys, it can be annoying.
Mhm. No, this deck seems like a crazy like best of 3 or like you bring multiple decks kind of thing. Like you could
Yeah.
definitely build this deck that has no overlaps with anything else, and this is just a cracked version of one of your 3. I like that.
It's very cool. I'm a big fan of how it like works.
Yeah, it's so clean. I mean, again, we didn't have combo decks for months and months and months, and now we have multiple different cool.
Yeah, it was all like the combo is just bursting people or not letting them act. Those were our combos. But now we have some like real like silly combos. It's funny though, because like if you send out N'Zoth at the same time I sent out mine, it gets really, really funny because I'm stealing your boggy and then you're stealing my boggy, and then it messes with the positioning. It's
that's tricky. But it seems like one of those things where it's like you wish that like the positioning tweaking would actually make a big difference, but it's actually just so degen that like the 7 extra damage doesn't.
yeah, it's
Like
weird.
what would determine the mirror here? Like
The big
I
thing
guess.
that determines the mirror is one, you just need N'Zoth. Like you,
yeah,
you
oh yeah. Assume I had just played N'Zoth on that thing, and then we
like,
start like
it's a whole different game if your opponent gets N'Zoth out and you don't.
Yeah.
Khadgar also makes the mirror very different
Hmm.
because he makes it so you can scale up your attack and health. He also is just a good ranged attacker. He can lock down opposing summon comps because they can't attack. So then N'Zoth is the only way. Like, it's pretty sweet. All right, you want to do one more? We'll,
Yeah, let me see what's a funky. I'm gonna try another. I would say Maestro definitely intrigues me. Let me see if there's another. I like this Ricochet deck.
Ricochet deck's really good.
Or I was also like seeing up these that ones have some.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more skill level in some of the decision making now, which is really cool. Like some of the most powerful comps were kind of autopilot, at least part of their game plan, right? Like Shadow's one of those deceptive ones where it felt like an autopilot comp, but there was actually a lot of depth to the later turns of Shadow. Like you can tell the difference between a good Shadow player and a bad Shadow player. But then like the Arcane Valyra comp, like that one almost kind of plays itself a lot of the time. But yeah, any initial impressions with your first time with some of these new teams? These
Yeah,
new
no, I mean,
mercs?
I like I said, I think the multicolor stuff is really crazy. These games also seem so far I've obviously just like kind of made these like really silly punts right away early on, but it seems like if you don't just grief the like, kind of like opening position, that these games seem like they're probably really long. Do you go to fatigue more frequently than not lately?
I think you're going to see more of that this patch than last patch, but it's going to be very matchup dependent. Like I've hit fatigue a few times, but it's not like it's not the norm yet, at least from what I've seen. But it can happen, especially in matchups where you're both like you care about scaling and stuff. I've hit fatigue in the summon mirror before.
Yeah, that one seems like you would just go back and forth for forever. That's really unfortunate.
You have the 1 HP totem
so
doing
much.
God's work.
That's
Oh my.
good to know to never do that.
The totem did a ton of work. I think this comp still struggles with dealing with your board though.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, I definitely like that part. This might just be a brick, but I think that's okay. We're getting chain healed here? That'd be unfortunate. Yeah. Oh, it hit all three. Feels bad. But I guess now I can use my Elise
healing
heal.
definitely good.
But I guess I can cleanse. Thankfully, I can guiding path this turn, and we're kind of vibing, I think, so it's not the worst.
Yeah, this is kind of like a new version of my old nature build, but because you had the root on one, I couldn't like cheat out Maestra, and that definitely makes this a lot worse because it doesn't want to be playing Bane on turn 2. It wants to be using Maestra turn 2. I couldn't swing with him.
Yeah, the Maestra seems...
Maestra is just a really busted character. She's very good. Oh wow, Bane actually lived. He didn't even do very much.
Yeah, there's still some chunky hundos. No, that was interesting. I lost the 2-speed flip, I think, with...
Oh yeah, that might have been it. I have had a bunch of different games where like setting up to get that advantageous coin flip has been very interesting. For any decks we
There's a
know,
lot of cool 2s again.
yeah, there are definitely some hard counters for sure. Like the summon comp, pretty hard counters. The old version of Shadow, I think. Non-master Shadow. Okay, this is gonna be interesting.
What am I bleeding 5 from?
Elise bleed. You healed, but you healed
Oh, because it goes
13.
from 18 to 13.
Yeah, we
Okay.
both have. I guess I healed mine off because of Bane.
Job's done.
If I go for the guiding path here, does it actually cast my monkey? If I have advanced the golden monkey 1 step and it's at monkey step?
No, that it just goes back around to the beginning.
Interesting, bummer. Okay. I think I just don't really want this Elise part of it. Like, I like the Khadgar. I like the Khadgar, like Ysera, Maestra, Bane combos. I definitely like the Khadgar plus the Maestra a lot. This Elise is underwhelmed me in terms of like things to swivel around a lot.
Lost that flip.
If that was still, it makes it still target. Oh, because it was my next turn.
Oh,
Why?
shit.
Because I won the thing before. Oh, disaster.
That's bad for me. Although it froze your Elise. Which is good for me. This is not how I expected this to go. But I'm not complaining at the same time.
Such an awkward board here.
Yeah, Boggy protects Monkey. They're best friends.
Eyes of the Earth Mother are upon us.
Here's the totem.
Oh, you have Nemzi in that deck?
Yes. Nemzi replaced Leroy. I have Leroy there. Do this.
Oh, that being up cooldown's a disaster. It's unfortunate.
This.
It's too much damage over there, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, the monkey is just crazy. The monkey's so good when you get it off, and it's like it adds like inevitability to Elise. Like Elise is just good for her initial things, but like you healed a bunch and just casual 89. It's pretty silly.
Yeah, I guess Elise just doesn't die ever.
So I think that what you needed to do was you needed to the turn with Khadgar. Well, I guess Khadgar was going to die either way, so going for the 2 is correct. But like I was set up to like do like a good 5 with the monkey, so I was also not only stacking the 5s, but getting that immediate monkey payoff, and that's why like 5s are so good with Elise.
I just didn't line anything up with the actual monkey there.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes. Like sometimes your stuff will be too fast, or it can just be sometimes it can be awkward if you don't have the things out that you want out at that time. But that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
No, that was cool to see a lot of the new people. Definitely
gives you an idea.
The things that after even just playing those games and just completely basically haven't seen any of these leveled up versions in PvP and stuff like that yet, other than some of your videos and that kind of stuff. I want to start going towards like, how do we use? I guess I never really got like crazy extra value out of the Maestro. Like that second ability is obviously really good.
Well, Maestro did a lot that game. She like insta killed
that
Mouth.
Crazy double kill. That was nice. that free double kill was nasty. But yeah, I liked the Khadgar plus Maestra synergies there. I liked just like a way to have a deck that could kind of start to really decide when you bring in the Maestro off of an attack. So I would start looking at some of the other characters that could start to sometimes attack and sometimes not as part of your opener.
Like Malchezaar. Malchezaar is a great character.
Malchazar's a pretty sweet one. So maybe like Malchezaar.
Khadgar Maestro combo. Well, Khadgar is just good with Maestro because you can just like keep buffing up your team and make Maestro stronger and give her survivability. Maestro's thing is like she's huge damage, but she dies pretty quickly because she's swinging in, often swinging into 2 things, and doesn't have a ton of HP to begin with. So she's like kind of very high burst, low survivability, and so Khadgar can help her out quite a bit with the survivability.
Yeah, because
and damage.
It did have the Malchezaar. It was just the Malchezaar, Khadgar.
And Malchezaar is really cool with Maestra because he gets that effect where he gets his battle cry off. You swing in, he swaps. You can then get his battle cry again later in the game, and you get the immediate Maestra value. And if you're hitting in a protector, they're taking even more damage from Maestra if they're in the Maestra like lineup.
That's cute. I definitely like that a lot.
It's pretty cool. It's I definitely think that one you were playing, Ricochet's build, is one of the better builds I have seen.
I like that deck
so far.
I like that one.
I've been pretty impressed with it. I played it a bunch today, and I really liked it. But a lot of experimentation still to be done.
Yeah, no, it seemed cool. That Nemzi deck seems maybe kind of toxic. Not gonna lie.
If you get a bad matchup, it can feel very very helpless against it if you have a bad matchup, which makes me think it's going to be one of the more polarized decks. But maybe that's just one of those things where you start seeing people throw in N'Zoth, throw in Cthulhu with the battle cry. Like there's definitely tech out there that can hate on it pretty hard. It's just a question of, does this become popular enough to where running that tech is justified or not? So far, I've only still seen a handful of people running it, but again, it's way too early to really tell how popular some of these builds are going to be, because especially the ones that have multiple new mercenaries, like the Boggy build, at least the one we were playing, has 3 new mercenaries. So we have Nemzi, Bonsamdi, and Medivh. You could also throw Khadgar in there. So it's like, it's going to take people time to level up these characters. So it's really hard to get a sense of just how popular it will be. But I do think it's one of those ones where that is going to be, if you have a player who has played the mirror of that a bunch versus a player who hasn't, you're gonna see that like a lot. You're gonna see the difference in like a great example of that was like, I've played enough of that mirror to know you always, if you're seeing other boggies, you just always send it in N'Zoth no matter what, because if they have it and you don't, it's just it's miserable. N'Zoth is the hard counter.
Yeah, I'm almost hoping that it like doesn't get solved too easily, where it's like, okay, once both parties know that you're supposed to bring in the N'Zoth, then now what? Like, but I like those types of narratives that play out over matchups like that. Whether even the fact that it's a mirror is cool, that people still have to kind of like innovate on how to play the mirror. But I like it when, and I think Mercenaries is a great game for having a matchup comes out, and especially now where hopefully the popularity, like you're saying, isn't just, we're not going to see a 20%, 30% of the metagame share archetype anymore, hopefully. It'll take a while to learn it. It'll take a while to practice and find these matchups and just like figure out what the story is. And so I think Mercenaries is a great game for kind of exploring that avenue when it comes to narrative kind of exploration and discovery like that. So I think it's hype. These decks look really cool.
Yeah, definitely. No, they're a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff that I haven't even gotten a chance to try yet. Like there's so many different.
What's the one that you think is kind of like highest on your tier list of like most unexplored but kind of most potential? Do you have any initial thoughts?
I'm pretty high on the comp with Ysera. I think there is something to demons, but it's going to take some time before people really crack the best version of that, and it's going to be kind of a meta-dependent comp. That's the tricky thing. It's like, it's hard to really know how good some of these new ones are going to be until we see the other stuff that's also good, because it's so contextual.
Yeah, especially when it feels like we're having sideboard cards as a literal consideration now for the first time. Like, yeah, do you have to counter an MZ stuff? Do you have to put a Cthulhu in there? Do you have to put a N'Zoth in there? Like those, right? Totally. You have to.
And there's stuff people haven't even really tried that could be really cool. Like one idea is Bonsamdi bounce. You could use that with a Cthulhu bench, and you can bounce your old gods very easily. And every time you play an old god from hand, it makes the bench Cthulhu even bigger. So like you can actually have like a 70 attack Cthulhu or something pretty easily by like turn 3 potentially. So there's a lot of stuff just people haven't tried yet. Like there's a lot of stuff I haven't even remotely thought about that I'm sure will enable some new stuff. Like I haven't messed with the Murlocs much at all, but the big thing that makes me hopeful is a lot of these new comps can hate pretty hard on what some of the best old comps were from last time around. It doesn't make those old comps unplayable. They're just not universally as good versus the whole field, which is good. I think.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah,
I'm glad we're not going to see 14 new mercs come in and Shadow and Trigor Valera continue to be like the high tier above most other comps. Like I think there's going to be more variety, and I think, you know, like we talked about kind of in towards the beginning of the episode, much like Pokemon, you know, as we get more and more, it's going to get more expansive, and we're finally seeing that, I think, with this drop, where before you'd get it, even the new powerful mercs, with like a few exceptions like Valera, Trigor, they could kind of go into anything. But some of these other mercs, they were very tribe specific, where even if they were very powerful, it just didn't make sense to run them outside their tribe because they were always going to do their powerful thing better in their tribe. And now I think we're seeing more characters who they have that flexibility. Like, yeah, Nemsi's great in the summon comp, but I've used her in other stuff, and she's also been good there, even comps that don't care about going all in on the summon theme. Khadgar is probably the best example of this, because I've seen him in a ton of different comps, because he just has a lot of utility and is useful in a bunch of different strategies. Kind of like, I think Khadgar is the new Elise. Like, in
Khadgar
terms
seems like
of
the best like free to play investment, like can go into a ton of stuff. Like Khadgar really impressed me, I think.
he's good in PvE too. If you want to farm some PvE, he's good there too. So I definitely think he's a good way to go, and he's going to be a very relevant part of the meta going forward. But yeah, it was fun. Glad we got some games in. We had some good discussion.
Thoroughly
But
embarrassed myself, but we're good.
well, you know,
Game is sick.
that's
One
kind of what
minute
happens playing with these characters for the first time. Like, I made tons
That
of
shit,
mistakes with some of them when I was first trying out, because like it's the best way to learn the game is like, you know, you're not like losing anything, right? Like, especially with the whole MMR system and ladder like having more problems than we have time to talk about right now.
The fact that I could just borrow your decks like that is
Yeah.
awesome. So that's
I love that change. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of that,
too.
and that's actually going to enable some very cool content that hopefully all of you watching will be seeing on Monday. So we're going to be recording something neat tomorrow, and hopefully, if it does well and people like it, we'll do some more of it in the future. But it's something we have never done before in Merc's PvP, and I'm looking forward to it. So little sneak peek there.
a little testing,
Um,
little boundary pushing,
yeah,
pioneering.
it's fun, you know, trying out some new stuff for the content. I think it's something people are going to be a fan of. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for us here for episode 33 of the Fighting Pit. If you're watching this not live, if you would like, subscribe, comment, all that good social media stuff really helps out support the podcast. And as always, we appreciate everyone for hanging out, listening, and we will see you soon on the next episode of The Fighting Pit. Take it easy, everybody.
Adios. Stay safe.